Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. But no matter what, happy Friday, everybody out there. I hope you are having a good week. I hope that this week has set things up for a great weekend for all of you out there. I'm Shaun Cole with my good buddy Billy Strange. We are here for today's edition of the Beyond the Sim. Billy Strange, how are you today?
I am doing great. How are you?
I
Wait,
am.
I know that question. I know that answer.
I am fantastic.
There's no hint of sarcasm in there at all.
None whatsoever. I turned my cameras a little on the red side today to emulate my feelings for the day. So we'll see
Oh,
if I can keep my composure.
it's a
Who
mood
knows?
sensing camera.
So before we get too started, normally I turn right to Billy and ask you what you've been doing this week in sim racing. I'm going to start off with I should add a checklist here for the apologies that I'm about to lay down. Apologize for not posting the show early because usually we have a little pre-show stuff going on Twitch. We have chat going on before the show, and everyone's probably wondering what's going on. Where's the link? Where's the link? And there was no link. We just went live instantaneously. So that's apology number one. Apology number two. There will be no real news like we normally cover, and that's because I've had a whole variety of issues and problems behind the scenes related to the computer, not personal. It's become personal. That's why I'm raging red. But it's all been computer related, working on things, trying to get everything. I almost canceled the show because my news feed wasn't working. I couldn't get any of that. So that's going to be different. I'm going to apologize. Number three, I have nothing to talk about. I've had nothing but a week of frustration. I did do some driving, but I honestly can't even remember what I touched other than this computer and the amount of strength and that it took to not throw it through the wall. That's all I can think about. So Billy's going to carry today's show. Thank you, Billy, for that. And what else can I apologize?
Anything for the cause.
I'll apologize in advance for any negativity that I display today. Just know that I've had a rough few days, so that's that. Anyway, with that said, and there might be more apologies to come. I don't know. With that said, Billy Strange, cheer us back up. What have you been doing this week?
It sounds like our job today, ours and chat's job today, is to get you to not obsess over this quite so much. But I am there with you. I've had PC problems. We'll get into that a little bit later. Last week, we talked about WRC8. And so I finished my review, put that up over the weekend. I really like WRC8. I think, I've got some minor issues with it, like the options for field of view could be a little better, seat position, that kind of thing. But it's not atrocious, and I actually use the dash cam, and then with the field of view for a dash cam, then I pull the field of view back for the dash cam, and it actually works pretty well because there's no wheel on the screen or anything like that. So I really enjoy WRC8. It's got a lot of stuff in it. For the people that don't like, it confuses me when people complain about adding something to the sim.
Right.
Game. Whichever way you choose to think of this. It's
Sim
like
game.
you don't actually have to do it. So the career mode has those RPG elements in it.
Okay.
I like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But there's you can just run a rally championship if you don't want to do that, because otherwise, if you didn't have that stuff in there, it'd be the same thing. There'd be really no purpose. You're just running a series of races.
Sure. That makes total sense. It's like that's already in the normal mode, so it'd be redundant.
Yeah, so you have that option, and it kind of confuses me when people start complaining about a thing that they don't have to do. It's an added thing. So I in particular like the idea of what they have in the career mode. I'm going to get back to playing it more. I just had a bunch of stuff to do this week. So did that. Ran some more on the V7 tires. And I don't know how I feel about them. I think, like I stated last week, I think it is an improvement, but there's the way you do the brake with those tires, it's even more sensitive to me than the prior model tires. So I still can't drive it as hard. Now, I'm going to preface it. This is on the road racing side. I still can't drive the car as hard as I'd like to. I'm not utilizing the brake like I should be. And I was hoping that first iteration with the Skippy, you
Uh-huh.
really had to use the brake.
Okay.
And it felt more like braking in a race car to me, from my experience in a race car, than now it feels more like a sim again, where you have to be real nice and gentle. And I push a little bit on the brake now and it just locks up.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I can adjust all this stuff, but it just doesn't feel right. So I don't like that about the tires. What I do like about the tires is they might take a little too long, but they do take a while to warm up and get good.
That's my favorite aspect
Yeah.
of it. I mean, coming off driving a real track and getting the reminder of certain aspects of real life driving, it that, and then now it's like, okay, but I want flat spots. Like at one point, a set of our tires got flat spotted, and so I got to drive a stint on some lumpy tires, and it's such a huge factor, really. So but that's just one aspect. The heating up is the other, though, and just how sloppy and useless a car can be when you're trying to push it at race speeds. And I found in the Skippy it was over 3 laps. At Laguna, where you're hitting those tires pretty good. It just took a long time, but it gave them more life. It made them feel more like a real tire to me, in that aspect.
Yeah. Again, hello to everybody in chat. I know we had a very abrupt start, so people are joining as we're talking.
Theodore, I didn't even get to Streambox bookmarks. That'll be tested for later. No, we didn't even get to that, unfortunately. Dun, dun, dun. All right.
So, yeah, I like the V7 tires.
Did you try it on other cars other than the Skippy?
I ran the GT1 cars primarily.
Okay.
I don't own the F3.
And what, that was the Corvette and the Aston?
The Corvette and Aston Martin.
Yeah, those are the two. Okay. I haven't driven those yet.
I ran those. I made sure that I ran those cars before the update and then after. There are aspects that I like before. So I actually prefer the way I did braking with those cars before. But I do like, obviously, the tire warming up. I think that's much better. The tire lifespan seems to be better before they fall off. I still want those tires to start dropping off towards the end of a fuel run. And I haven't done a full fuel run, so I don't know how well those tires stay.
Right.
I noticed I was running my best laps at laps 7, 8, 9. So again, they might take a little too long to get to optimal temperatures.
Right.
Because anytime I've done road racing, it doesn't take quite that long.
No,
but again, and compound they're basing it off of.
Right.
There's factors that I don't know. Is it supposed to be a hard compound tire? But I don't know what factors that they're using.
Right.
So I kind of give it a little bit of a grain of salt there. Like, I give it a pass because I'm not totally sure where they're at. I can feel the car step out a little better. And I noticed that my on throttle, if I start to spin the tire, I can hold.
Right.
I can modulate that better.
Right.
So I like that.
Like, there's more sidewall action out of the tire.
It gives you a little bit better feeling about what the car is doing. Like I said, my only really criticism of it is under braking. I'm not clicking with how it works under braking. I'm not doing the snap spin.
Right.
That can happen with the other tires, but I feel like I'm not able to utilize the brake as well as I did with the other tires. So it feels odd in that respect. Everything else I actually kind of like. The oval, I tried the K&N car. I really like it on the K&N car. I feel like I can really hustle the car, and it just doesn't die in 3 laps where all of a sudden you start skating around. It takes a while. So I do enjoy that tire model on the K&N.
Right.
So I can't wait till they implement that on the other NASCAR oval style cars, because I think it'll be good.
Right. A lot of people are asking about weather. Weather is definitely a factor in iRacing, and especially in the relationship between the tire and the ground. I think even more so than any engine parameters. Like, we don't retune our carburetors, because of how many? There's still a lot of carburetors in iRacing, but we're not, making ambient temperature changes to airflow, but we are making tire adjustments and setup adjustments. So there's definitely a correlation to temperature to the tires. So that's definitely a factor. And Theodore, that is, we can attack that. We don't really have that well scheduled a show today, funny enough, but in a nutshell, I'll answer your question. Friday the 13th, full moon, Friday the 13th, by the way, the harvest moon, Friday the 13th. How luck factor is involved into sim racing. And it's like, luck is a huge factor in sim and real life racing, period, across the board. And you can be superstitious or not. Luck is also just saying odds, so if you want to be mathematical and not mystical about it. But yeah, I mean, you put yourself in enough situation and odds are eventually something will go wrong. And all those times that it went right, you could probably call it luck. You could call it skill. But no, I think there's a huge amount of luck in racing. And sometimes it's small luck, and sometimes it's huge luck. Anyway, continue on. Tire model.
My dad used to beat it into me, though. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yep. I agree with that.
So I did all that. Again, I liked the K&N car. I thought it was a really good improvement. Not that I didn't get along with the cars before, but there was definitely, like, this isn't exactly how tires work kind of thing, where now I feel like it's more normal to how a tire operates. And I just enjoyed making laps with the K&N car. Again, there could be exploits. You get, you find some tire pressure that just allows you to have insane grip for, 500 laps.
Right.
I'm being a little facetious here, but you know what I'm saying. I don't test to break it. I just get in and drive and see what,
Sure, and make changes to make it more drivable. You're not, and again, I think there are people who go right to the Achilles heel, go right for the exploits. I'm assuming there's a good portion of people who the first thing they do is go to like 0 rebound on all the shocks and, and see what it, and then go to 99% rebound, just
do the things that they know were exploitable, and then they start looking for the other ways to exploit if those exploits don't continue to exist.
Yes. I'm hoping that the new tire model removes, because I think it was pretty general consensus that in iRacing you just drop tire pressure, period. And it's like, but that's not necessarily realistic. I've never been in a race car that had literally sloppy tires.
It's squishy. It moves all over the place, and it can actually, if you lower the tire pressures too much in a sprint car, the tire actually folds in on itself.
Right.
So you lose the surface of the tire. You actually lose traction because then it springs and it kind of creates that kick.
Sure. And then you could probably do damage if you were waiting on a certain amount of air pressure to build up, hot versus cold. Well, it's not that kind of differences, but it's like you can't go out with a tire that won't support you and then hope that 3 degrees of temperature rise or 5 degrees lifts you in the air somehow. Because you'd hurt the tire before then. So, so I'm hoping that that's one thing. And again, I haven't tested those boundaries. All I've really done was driven it in the Skip Barber car, which I actually I've kind of been re-falling in love with the Skip Barber car as a racing series car. So while I've been searching for the next series that I would host for the Sim Pit on iRacing, because we did ovals for a while. Anyway, now I'm kind of like, I think it's going to be the Skippy. Between the new damage model, which will make it just a little more fun to watch replays, and the tire model, I think it'll make for a lot of fun. And then I've driven the TCR, the Audi. But the Audi was a little different because it being a completely new car, you don't have that comparison ability. It also being a front-wheel drive car makes it a unique beast in its own. So it's hard to say because, if I compare it to like the Jetta, which there's no comparing it to the Jetta. But if you did, the Jetta had a lot of torque steer. It was like, oh, wow, this is a front wheel drive car, whereas the Audi seems to drive really well balanced for a front wheel drive car. And it's like, well, I'm assuming that's because it's a modern car versus the V-Dub is quite dated and quite simple, and the Audi is a beast of a 350 horsepower racing machine. And so it's like, yeah, well, it felt great. I love the car, by the way. It's really fun.
I don't like it.
But, oh, you don't like it?
I don't like it.
Oh, how come?
Kind of boring.
Oh, see, I'm thinking at 350 it turns it into that just fast enough to make... again, I'm always looking for cars that race well together more than...
Yeah, I know. I'm not... I don't gravitate to that.
Right.
A car has to be exciting and fun, and it can provide close racing. And for me, I just don't like the way the car feels. It's just... I know I'm in the minority. I understand. It's just not my thing.
Well, I mean, as much as I like the car, it's not preferable to a front engine rear wheel drive car of any kind to me. But that's just sort of like...
Well, my point is like I can go run the cars in race room. I enjoy running those cars.
Okay. So it's the iRacing variation.
So it's the iRacing variation that I'm just...
That's an important fact.
I just don't. It's not for me. And I know tons of other people are enjoying it, and that's great.
The whole world loving it seems.
I know. I'm just not there.
You don't have to feel bad.
Well, it's a little frustrating. I kind of, I bought the car and the whole thing, and I'm like, oh, well, this is kind of...
I don't know if I disagree with you in terms of just like that. I do feel, again, getting back to whenever I guess I've been on the quest for what cars I would race in a series because I'm always looking for that. And again, I want to force the Miata down everyone's throat because as much as everybody despises the Miata, I'm like, yeah, but you're never going to get a better race. So that's why I was like, oh, well, the Skippy is sort of like the open-wheeled version of the Miata. Right. We're going to get a great race because there just won't be a huge gap, and, it'll keep people close together. Versus fast cars, we're going to be lapping the back markers on the third lap, So yeah, I'm like, oh, well, this could be like that one step up, but still provide that great door-to-door racing. And maybe I didn't look at it so much from the entertainment of the driver.
I totally get it. Like, it's gonna, from what I've watched, random call signs in here. I've watched RTA. Like, I've watched several people run races. It looks fun. When I actually drive the car myself,
right,
it'd be regardless of the race. It's kind of like the Skip Barber. Running it with other people is fine. Like, there are moments that I have fun, but I just don't enjoy actually driving the Skip Barber, just like I don't like driving the Miata.
Right.
Those aren't my kind of cars. Yeah. It's just kind of me.
Fair enough. No, I agree. Because, again, when I, bring up the Miata, everyone's like, ah.
Yeah, like I said, I understand the racing that it provides. It's just not up my alley. So then I also did a how-to on Fairbury.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
The short track, the short dirt track, and I used the midget, the 410 wing sprint car and 410 non-wing sprint car. I was really impressed with the midget. Whoever did the setup for that track is pretty good right out of the box. So whoever did that setup in iRacing, I give kudos to that person because it's pretty good. It was a lot of fun to race the midget around there.
Awesome.
410 wing sprint car kind of has the same gripes that I usually have. Too much toe out, or what I consider toe out. There's negative toe in. I don't understand that part. But anyway. And a couple other things that I don't care for the car. I like a lot of left rear drive. I like when I get into the corner, the thing to take a bite and sit on the left rear and pull coming off the corner. The non-wing sprint car is different. I changed some stuff in the setup. Running the Highline with that car is tricky, and I don't know why the sprint cars seem to have this like mid-corner snap to them that you have to prepare for to make it not do it, which is odd. I don't recall that happening when I drove a sprint car. But you can prepare for it so you don't end up doing it. And then what was interesting is I run up high and then I take the non-wing down low, and it runs great down low. Like, you can really get in and make that thing around. It's still missing. Something changed, though, that both of those cars should be way more violent. They should be really on a fresh track. So they should be really picking up and dancing the front end and doing wheel stands. It's only when you severely mess up that it tries to do one of those things.
Okay.
And if you've ever watched a sprint car race, when the track is really hooked up, they're doing those things where they're pulling wheelies and bicycling whether they want to or not because they messed up.
Right.
So, but overall, great track. I mean, they did a really good job modeling it, and it's fun to get around it. Which kind of segues me into, I watched the USAC 410 race.
That's right. You had mentioned that. Yeah.
Heat
this is the first
really,
of their new esports. So 10 grand on the line. Yeah.
6
to the winner. I think 10 for the pool.
Oh, is it 10 overall, 6 to the winner? Okay, I get you. So, watched that, and it was kind of playing out like I thought. If you can run the bottom really good, especially during the heat races, you were going to make some time. And it was really cool. They had like 3 wide passing, and I thought they did a really good job with the heat races. But then I think you saw the flaws of the car when the track started to slick off really bad. And you watched the main, and the main was not great. No. Not in my opinion. Just a lot of yellows, and they're counting the yellow flag laps too. So 30 laps, and you have 4 or 5 yellows, which is what they had.
So you only get 4 or 5 laps of racing.
Yeah, it wasn't as good. The heat races were great though. Because the track had some moisture, even though it had some slick spots in it. They could move around, and I thought the heat races were really good. Alex Bergeron actually did a really good job in the main when there were green flag laps, running the bottom. I mean, it was so narrow. He was using the left rear tire, and he actually went all the way to the lead, and then after a restart, clipped the infield tire and spun around.
Oh
and
my!
Caused the yellow.
But that's how low he was running.
Yeah, but I mean, he was doing that's what I was, in the video, that's what I was trying to convey is, you don't have to go all the way out to the fence. You can stay in the traction on the bottom of the track, and if you can do it, you'll be good. But him and one other guy were really the only 2 that could really do anything on the bottom. Everybody else was like running the top, but they were slapping the fence and having all kinds of problems. Cars were getting all over the place. It wasn't as impressive as the heat races were, which makes me think there's either a fundamental problem with the car itself, because these are supposed to be the best guys.
Right.
So there's a fundamental problem with the car itself, or there's a fundamental way that the track, the amount of grip the track loses and how fast it loses it.
Right.
Because if I've ever watched one of those races, later in the year and early in the year, tracks can stay hooked up. Like, there will be no slick in it.
Right.
And the tracks always get slick. And I just feel like there was a better race for these guys when there was just a little bit of slick. But they had 2 grooves, and these guys were going 3 wide, shooting across. Like, it was really good racing. So, yeah, watch that. What else did I do? So the plan was to make a video on the V7 tires, my thoughts about that, because I thought today was the day that I was going to be able to get the PC release for NASCAR Heat 4. They ended up sending me a review copy.
Oh my. Wow.
Not sure why.
Wow, who wasn't doing their job there? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I thought Heat 2 was okay. I just didn't like Heat 3 at all. And so I was like, it completely took me by surprise. I think it was Tuesday night, I get this email, and I just about fell off the couch. My wife and I were watching a little bit of TV, and I just about fell off the couch. And I'm like, you'll never believe who just... Okay, they just sent me a review code.
That is hysterical.
So I ran over and started the download, and then I still had, I had work and a lot of things to do on Wednesday, but I did start to do the recording Wednesday evening, and then like you, not as severe, but like you, I had a problem I use my editing PC to separately record my audio, and then my gaming PC just records gameplay. And I saw that it was trying to do a flippin' update. Even though you tell it not to, it still tries to do, it's downloading the update. I'm like, fine, before this goes any further and really messes something up, I'll let it finish and then implement the update and we'll be fine. And I'm like, while I'm at it, my gaming PC at any point could try to do the same thing. And when it does it on that PC, it gives me frame rate problems. So rather than run into that, I just started the update, download, and all that on my gaming PC. And I'm going through my editing PC does this weird thing where it just gets done doing the update and then it just flips back to the desktop. And I'm like, that's not normal. So I was like, let's restart and try this again. So I hit restart and then it goes through and gets stuck on the BIOS splash screen. I'm like, this isn't good at all. Meanwhile, my gaming PC is almost finished. Like, it's installing updates. And I'm like, oh, God, this is not a good sign. So I restart, power down, do all this stuff, read. I mean, I spent an hour and a half on it trying to figure out what the problem is, because it would either go from that screen or when I would restart it the next time, it would just go automatic repair, initializing or whatever. But It's still on the BIOS splash screen. It's not on the blue screen of death. And I'm like, I'm reading through everything and I'm trying everything everybody's saying. And I was like, oh my God, you can't be serious. Like, I actually have an opportunity to get this. So after monumental cursing on my part, I looked at it and I was like, this is never going to work, but I'm just going to try this anyway. I turn off the PC, power it down. And then I have my portable hard drive hooked up to it, because that's what I take back and forth to get the gameplay off of my gaming PC. So I go back and forth. So it's easier just to have a portable. And then my camera uses an SD card. So I have an SD converter to USB. So those are plugged in. I'm looking at it going, pulled them both out, pushed the power button, boom, it fired right up. And there was a sense of elation and absolute irritation at the same time, because I was just like, oh my goodness, it couldn't be that easy.
What the hell?
It just fired right up, no problems whatsoever. I was like, oh, well, at least I don't have to redo anything. But after that, I just went to bed. This is it was almost midnight. I'm just like, I can't do anymore.
Oh my.
Luckily, yesterday I didn't have a whole lot of work to do, so whenever I could, I was like sneaking in time doing my review. So I released that at about midnight or so last night. Whatever reason, it's 52 minutes long. I couldn't really trim it down any further.
Right.
Because there was just a ton of stuff to go over. But I did give people time stamps if they wanted to skip parts.
Okay.
Because I get it. Some people don't care about the menus and options, like graphic options and stuff like that. I really tried to get across that I did not expect it to be like iRacing.
Mm-hmm.
There were times that I did use iRacing as an example, because that's the only other NASCAR thing that's out there.
Right.
But I didn't expect it to be, hardcore like. I guess the comparison that I was trying to make people understand that I wasn't doing is, I'm not saying this game is terrible because it's not like iRacing.
Well, and did you expect it to be? And did you even want it to be, to an extent, I dare say?
I was not looking for that experience out of NASCAR Heat 4. But with all the material we've watched, I did understand that they were moving closer in that direction. But I also knew that they weren't all the way there.
Sure. Well, and I still want, me personally, I haven't played it yet, but I still personally want the I'm just going to put it this, the boogity aspect of that game. Sure. That I don't get from iRacing. I didn't want vanilla. I wanted marble fudge. Whatever. Pick your favorite. Rocky Road. Pick your favorite ice cream. Oh.
But yeah, so if you have any interest, please go watch.
And Billy mentioned a
boatload
few
of time
things.
on it.
And Billy, just so you guys know, Billy mentioned a few different videos that he's put out. So the NASCAR, you've got the Fairbury track drive, and you didn't do the tire model one, right?
No, because
Okay.
that's what happened was I ended up getting the NASCAR heat when I was anticipating doing the V7 video.
And you'll find all those at Billy Strange Racing descriptions
Yes,
in the show here. So yeah. Anyway, that's okay. Cool.
So yeah, I went in with the idea that I don't want this to be a hardcore sim, but there are certain expectations on a PC that I do have. For instance, mouse support. It doesn't have mouse support.
Right.
It also just continues to use the Xbox buttons when you press the keyboard. So later there's like a thing where the car is spinning. It has a semi paint booth kind of deal.
Right.
The car is spinning. And I was like, I can't figure out how to stop the car spinning. It tells me to use like the right thumbstick or something to move the car around. I'm like, there's no right thumbstick.
No,
here.
I hate that about multi-platform games. Like, I'm sorry, if you're going to do multi-platform, including the PC, but your basis is the Xbox or the PlayStation, you at least have to have a small team that's going to do the UI conversion on its own. Because I'm getting tired of that at this point, because sometimes it doesn't work at all.
Right. It was just a little frustrating. I mean, it's not that the keyboard doesn't work, it's that you're left to guess. Either if you have a wheel that has buttons and a D-pad, and I don't know if direct drive wheels work on NASCAR Heat 4, but if they do, my apologies, because it's you're gonna have to everything the keyboard and can't use the mouse. And like Dan, Dan was saying, it was so funny when I said I'm not going to compare it to iRacing, and then he said if I was a big drinker, I would have taken a shot every time Billy said iRacing, and I did. iRacing as an example of what I didn't expect it to be, but it was the only way that I could sit there and say, here's what I mean. And it's so hard to convey when the steering is loose and sloppy just by watching what I am playing. And I'm like, again, this is not comparing the physics part of iRacing. This is just giving you an example of how much tighter and how much less you have to steer in iRacing. Not that the physics have anything to do with this. This is just like normal stuff.
Right.
So that's why I ended up using iRacing, is because I expected this to be easier than iRacing. And in a lot of cases, it wasn't. It apparently has some big bug issues. So right when I get out on the track, the constant vibration in the wheel, almost all the way around the track. It gets down the straightaway, it lessens, and then you get in the corner, it's like, I mean, I said it was like riding your road bicycle over cobblestone constantly.
Right.
And I was just like, this is weird. Apparently that's tied to your graphical options.
What?
Why that is, I have no idea. But the bug apparently is the more you turn up your graphical options, the worse that vibration gets.
Right.
And I couldn't turn it off.
So do you think they made it harder because they're trying to be more sim-esque? So they're like, oh, well, we have to make it difficult? And do you think that they're going to lose their crowd? Like, did they go too far?
So that's my fear, but a lot of people have been saying they like it. So when I started the video, I prefaced it with, I am not reviewing this with a gamepad. So this might work really well with a gamepad. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is they're including being able to use a wheel and pedal set. So that's how I'm going to judge it.
Right.
Yes, the favorite part, Dan says, is when I said you guys misspelled break. That part when I spelled it like, you're in a break room, not you're using the break in your car.
Right. Got to take a break.
I couldn't help it. I was like scrolling down. It was right in front of me. I'm all, you guys misspelled break.
Wow.
But I lost what I was talking about. That was good. Good talk.
Losing their audience at all because it's more difficult?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Jeez. Spacey. I was up too late last night. So there was, I did the comparison that at Charlotte with a cup car. I've been seeing it flicker.
Yeah. Now it's flickering more. Is that me? No,
I don't know.
I think it's Discord.
Discord. Okay. So what I did was I did compare the cup cars, not in the physics per se that I wanted NASCAR Heat to be like that. What I wanted out of it was to be easier. And I actually feel it's slightly more difficult, like the car slides around. What it acts more like is last year's car, even though it's supposed to be this year's car.
Right.
There's a lot of looseness in the steering wheel. It's just not tight. You know, you feel like you've really got to steer far, and it just makes it hard to race side by side with other cars.
Right.
You know, I didn't even get to the career mode. The dirt late models are junk again. I thought they were okay. Like, they're better, but they're still not good. They did improve the trucks on the dirt, though. Like, that's what I expect. They're pretty easy to drive on the dirt, which is, what I expect. I don't know that the physics are that bad. I think it's more of an implementation of a problem with the wheel and how they're setting the wheel up. I had to use 360 degrees. Couldn't use 540. Like, it just didn't line up 900. And even with 360, it was sloppy. Oh, I know, Dan. I know you're just giving me a hard time. It's just funny. Like, I had one other person, like, kind of give me the same thing where, the iRacing thing. I was like, yeah, there's a reason I was trying to use it as an example, not a point of physics comparison.
Sure. Well, and I think that's one of those things that, I hate to say it, but some people, when they're watching a video like that, there are certain keywords that are going to set them off. So it doesn't matter what you said before or after the word iRacing. All they heard was iRacing and made the instant assumption that was all your angle was how it compared directly to iRacing, and
right.
And it was somehow inferior. I'm assuming if they were taking offense to it, because
that's what I'm assuming. Like I said, if you actually kind of followed along with what I was trying to do, I was actually saying this should be easier than iRacing, and in most cases, and again, I don't necessarily know if that's a physics thing. Because the physics actually don't seem bad until you do road racing and you start doing these tight corners. And like I was doing the trucks at Canadian Mosport.
Yes.
And you get to the real tight double right-hander. You go down the hill. It gets on two wheels. It goes, whee.
Oh, my.
That's not right.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a setup in the world that's going to get you that much grip.
And what would happen is if you turned it really sharp, like really trying to get under somebody, then it would get over and it would just spin the truck sideways.
Right.
And I was like, I think you might have some problems at low speed here that we're not addressing.
Yeah.
Around the ovals, even on a short track, it didn't feel like that. But when I got to really tight corners on a road course, there were some issues.
Right.
So I don't even know that the force feedback is very good, but it was so hard to tell because of the constant vibration. I really couldn't give a good level of, is it just adequate? Which I was expecting it just to be adequate. I wasn't expecting it to be phenomenal.
Right.
Just give me a few things that it does and I'll be happy with this. And it was so hard to tell. And like when I was running Charlotte with the Cup car, I'd get nothing. And then like 2/3 of the way through the corner, all of a sudden the wheel would get really heavy, and combine that with the vibration that was happening. And then it would like jitter. It would like jump. You could feel like the car do this like shock to the wheel.
Right.
As you're going, what the hell is going on here? It's like, This is really bizarre.
Ah,
So I just said, if you have a wheel and pedal set, this is probably not worth at the moment until they fix these, that particular part. Everything else I can kind of get past. The field of view thing bothers me because to me, that's not a sim thing. To me, that's just if I can drive with a wheel, then I should be able to adjust the field of view.
right.
Period. If it's just gamepad only, then okay, I got what you're telling me. I don't expect to change the field of view.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
On the wheel thing, I wonder, on this game, this one more so than other brings this into question for me. I wonder how much different the wheel feels on the console versus the wheel feels on the PC. So
Right.
part of the problem is related to the graphics thing. I don't know, maybe that other super heavy force feedback is also related to that, or once that's going, does that create some over interpretation of some other signal? Like, I'll give you a great example. I was editing yesterday and I could hear everything great. When I turned on my TV, that secondary noise made my speakers like completely flatline peak, right?
Oh, really?
And if I muted either one or the other, it was fine. But the two together, and it's like, well, the volume on them is the same. So combined, it shouldn't be any louder. But somehow the two running at the same time caused this peak that didn't happen to either one at the same level on their own. Anyway, getting back to that super force feedback poll, I wonder if it was part of it already getting some weird command signal.
Might even be just specific to my wheelbase. I have no idea, but the problem is that it's there.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to test it with. On a G, like we were talking, guys in chat are talking about Jeff Fabignano, where they were using, I believe, a G29. It might work great on a G29.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea, but the fact of the matter is, on my wheelbase, it doesn't work right. It just doesn't work right. Maybe on a Thrustmaster T300,
Right.
it might work right.
Right.
And a Fanatic, whatever, it might work right. But my particular wheelbase, it was not. But the interesting part was it picked all my inputs up right away, all my devices.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah, so I did have to remap the brake because the brake was not getting the full range. And that's another thing. I have never used such a sensitive brake in anything before. So the slider down the middle, right? I left everything. And then when you can look at your input, I noticed it wasn't going all the way. So I said, I'll just try running it. You breathe. I'm not kidding. Touch the brake and it spun the car out.
No way.
I'm like, okay. I just need to recalibrate the brake pedal.
Uh-huh.
I go in, recalibrate the brake pedal so I'm getting full range. Got full range. Still does the same thing. Okay, well, this is way too sensitive. So I kept moving the sensitivity down, and it was barely helping. I'm all the way down at the bottom of the sensitivity range, and it's still like you barely push on the pedal, and it wants to kick the back end around.
Right.
What the hell is going on? So then they have a brake smoothing option so that you don't lock the tires up as easy. So they have off, low, and high. I had to put it on high. I can still lock the brake up pretty easy, but at least it's not so sensitive. But I'm still only using like maybe a quarter of the pedal.
How weird.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that might be a bug as well. I'm hoping that's a bug because it's way too sensitive.
Well, it doesn't give you anything to work with at an emergency moment.
That's the problem is if somebody makes a move and you hit the brake, the car just takes off instead of you being able to like modulate the brake and kind of move over and give somebody room.
Right.
It's the same problem with the thanks, Brandon. I appreciate that. The wheel, it's so kind of sloppy in the center, like you can't make fine adjustments to get away from the guy. You end up having to put a bunch of wheel into it, and then all of a sudden the thing takes off.
Right.
Because now you've gone over that threshold and you've put too much wheel into it. So it's just it could be really good. It looks great. Like the skybox looks great. I think the cars on track look really good.
Uh-huh.
There is some. I mean, they got rid of a lot of the graphical gripes that I have, besides motion blur, and then there's some like shimmery. I don't know, like it's like this ghosting kind of thing with the lights in the cars every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
And then every once in a while there's also seems like there might be some camera shake, and it's like if those are things you're purposely putting in there, can I please have an option to turn those off?
Right.
Because I don't like that stuff. Your eyes don't do that.
Right. Tim, I think you tried 540, right? 540 was your rotation you
I
liked?
tried 540. Well, 540, 900, 1080. You should never ever run anything in 1080 except a old road car. But it's not that it wasn't too sensitive, it was that it wasn't sensitive enough. So when it's not sensitive enough, you tend to narrow the degree of rotation, not increase.
Right.
And it did. When I got down to 360, at least the bar, when you bring up the thing to see if your wheels calibrated, at least it was 1-to-1 at that point.
Right.
When I was at 540, it was doing some funky rotation. At 900, it was reading 540.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like,
That's really weird.
Not how this works.
That's very weird.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. Yeah, there's no problem with my pedals. Like, I've been using everything else under the sun, so the pedals aren't the issue. Wheels not the issue. It's purely how the game chooses to interact with my hardware.
Sure. But at the same time, I mean, it sounds like, coming off of the way we've joked for a year about Heat 3, it sounds like for the most part, things have gone in the right direction, and that they are in a little bit of need of some proper feedback and some adjustments for the masses, hopefully more focus on the PC in particular, and we might actually be on a decent path. I mean, if I had to interpret what I've heard from you, that's kind of what I'm getting in a nutshell. Is that far off?
No, that's my opinion. It's not. If it was working properly, if my wheel was working properly, even though I don't like the fact that there's no, I can't use the in-car view, the cockpit view. So I was just using the hood. It's annoying to me, but the game felt fun enough in the moments where I was actually racing other AI. Like, the AI is pretty good. And when you kind of anticipate the problems that you're having with the wheel, kind of the sloppiness, like, I was actually having fun having some good battles with the AI, and they were fast enough to be challenging. They weren't always quite fast enough, but more often than not, they were a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so those parts I think are good. It's just I don't know. I feel like I'm hoping that they're bugs. I'm hoping that they patch it, and that when they patch it, I go back to it and everything feels nice and crisp. And like I said, even if they don't do anything with the field of view, fine, I'll run the hood view and have fun with it that way and just take it for what it is. And I don't know, it has the potential, but I think the frustrating part is there's always been signs of potential in each title. So, like, the title of my video was Big Changes, Missing Basics. That's how it made me feel. Like, you guys did a great job making these massive improvements and changes to it, which I applaud you for, but you're still missing fundamentals along the way. Like the options for graphics, it's only like 4 options.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we're on the PC.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
let's give me a little more to work with.
That doesn't even cover the basics for options.
So, yeah, let's cross our fingers and hope that they patch that stuff. And if they do, then I will do another video as a follow-up going over, hey, they improved blank.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds like I would go get it. I would go get it. It sounds like there's enough fun within it that, well, maybe I'd wait for the price to come down.
I was gonna say I'd wait for the bugs.
The price drop, a patch or 3 and a price drop, and I'm all over that.
So there you go. I mean, like I said, on a gamepad, it may be completely different. And if you like graphically the things that they're doing with it, then that's obviously not a deterrent to you. And there was, several people that were saying, well, I've been enjoying it. I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah,
Like, I want people to enjoy it.
sure. And there's plenty to be enjoyed, it sounds like.
But my point is I've got so many other things that I can drive. Like, you guys are missing the boat. If you
Right.
expect I guess my point is, if you expect people that race on the PC, especially ones that skew to more hardcore, but that will be willing to look at a title that was not as hardcore, you're going to lose them because you're missing some basic stuff going on here.
Right, right. Okay. Awesome. What else did you do? Sounds like a busy week. You got more?
Other than riding my road bike, I think that's it.
Being fairly healthy.
Yeah, I like a month and a half ago, beginning of August, end of July, I started changing my eating habit, and then I started doing some exercising, and now I got to the point where, like, the last week and a half, I've been able to go ride my road bike every day for about an hour-ish or so.
I thought you're supposed to ride your bike to not have to change your eating habit. That's my philosophy.
No, I got to get the weight down. So, I mean, I've lost about 8 pounds since I've done it. But I got to get the weight down further before I can get back to eating whatever I want.
I need to double ride because I need to lose 8 and not change what I'm eating. So that means double riding, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I looked at how much I was eating per how much calories I was burning. I was like, oh, this.
You have to ride a lot to burn calories to offset food and beverage.
It's about an hour's worth of riding for me is roughly 600 to 700 calories.
All right. So that's
I mean, that's not too bad.
That's probably a quarter of my intake.
I'm down to like a 1,200 calorie diet a day.
Oh my.
So
I think I drink more than 1,200 calories in a day.
I feel way better though. Like,
yeah.
I do feel much better. Like, I have way more energy and I don't feel so.
All right. Well, I'm tired as a AF, so. All right. We are at the 1 hour mark. I need to go to the bathroom. I did not set up an intermission. So do you want to take a quickie break? Do you want to carry time while I step away?
No, I'll take a break.
All right. So forgive us for not having an intermission screen. I'm just going to leave things rolling. I guess I could go to our holding screen, but I think we'll just go to, you can watch us walk away. We'll be back in like 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll get back to, I know Billy.
I'll give you a topic. The thigh master is neither a thigh nor a master.
Discuss amongst yourselves. All right. All right. We'll be right back.
Hey, yo, I ain't 50. I saw Brandon though earlier. Yes, I'm in constant hunger. 1,200 calories is tough because I like food. I don't even like sweets. I just like food. It's really hard to tell myself to have like half the portion that I normally would have. If Dan ever flew through the wall during one of these intermissions, I would donate one of my Twitch checks. That would be fantastic.
Oh, that would be funny.
I would at least pay the medical bill for doing that.
Oh. All right, so we are officially back now. How you, Billy? So you have. I only have one topic of discussion that really relates to sim racing. You have an idea or two?
Well, yes, it's kind of a talking point just to get your perspective, but I thought it was an interesting one, which I'm not sure like most of the audience that doesn't deal with this would understand. When I was watching, we know that Grid is coming up. It's supposed to release next month. So that event that you talked about where they were looking for content creators and stuff.
Right.
Alan from Team VVV went and did the press event. So the day after.
Okay.
The content creators were there. And he was on Twitch this morning, and I jumped in, and he had some video footage, recorded video footage, and he was talking over it. And we got to the point that he was talking about it's so hard to get a feel, like really analyze how good the game's going to be, what it really feels like in just the brief amount of time he got. And I just thought to myself, that's how I feel. Because I've been to a couple of those where you go in and you get such a limited time with it and you're not using your own stuff.
Right.
It's their settings. So you don't have like a scientific baseline per se to judge it on. And I was just curious. I would imagine you've done similar things, and is that kind of the same thing you get? Is there just not enough time in those kinds of events?
I almost
have you gotten enough time in one of those events to kind of form a good opinion?
Yeah, I would say both scenarios. It depends on how many people and your relationship with the developer themselves. So there have been times where if the developer really knew the show, really knew who you were, and maybe more back in Inside Sim Racing days when we were kind of the only media site, but then they'd really want to share a ton with you because they know you're legit, they know you're super serious, they're proud of their content, their product, and so there have been times where we got more than enough. But for the most part, and even more so in the modern times, most of these are at pretty large press junkets where they're doing it for so many groups that they can't do anything special for any one group, if that makes sense. And so then you really do get these and I've kind of started I don't want to give opinion when I see something at a trade show because it's usually a work in progress, single stage, one car, maybe even a locked view, their equipment, limited exposure. I mean, like, if you're like the media and they jump you in front of the line, you're not going to be like, oh, can I go again? It's like you're going to make you...
Everybody's staring at you, yeah.
And you already got your run.
For.
And yet, how much are you really going to formulate a strong opinion in a 3-minute demo of a single car, single track under those circumstances? The other thing is other little small things. It's like often... I find the graphics are not even close to maximized. Well, if there's anything that I am a snob or an elitist about, it's having the right field of view, having the right frame rate, and having the right monitor distance or VR settings, whatever it's being presented in. And it's like, if you can't give me what I want there, I could hate the best sim ever. So... all these things make it really hard. So it's like when I go to a trade show, when I go to a press thing, I've really narrowed it down to this is just a first look. This is like a mini look, not even a first look like my first day with a full title. This is just a progress report first look,
Right.
And yeah, I think it's unfair because again, I'd hate to formulate a strong opinion in that moment of time. That was one of the things with WRC8. I drove it at E3 a bunch, really, because I could stay after hours and drive it, and I could drive other stages, but I couldn't film the other stages. But it still just was so early that it was like, well, I don't want to give myself the wrong impression, and I don't want to give anybody else the wrong impression. Because if something like force feedback still isn't optimized, and I'm
Right.
like, oh, well, this isn't, or the physics still, and it's like, and I just don't know what level they are in the development. So it's hard. Yeah. So I find it best to just use it as that teaser. I look at it as like a really good movie commercial on TV, and you're like, oh, I know I'm going to go see that when it comes out because you're watching the preview, and you're like, I love it. I got to get me some of that. So that's how I kind of feel all of those moments are. I mean, now when it gets to something that's like 1 month away or less than a month, they've already gone gold.
Yeah. How much are you really gonna?
The disc was already sent off to China
Yeah.
to be made. So, you are driving. You might even be driving. There's a chance you might be driving something that has already been patched that the one that everyone's going to buy doesn't have yet. Because they might have sent the disc off for duplication for Xbox, PlayStation, but then the development team didn't just go on vacation. Maybe there are a few more things on that hot list that could be dealt with because they knew they were going to be in patch number 1. So, yeah, anyway, long-winded answer to your pretty easy question. I could have just given you a yes or no, I think.
No, I was just curious because I know the first one that I did was, what was it, F1 2016 or F1 2017? I had to go drive all the way down to San Francisco. And I hate San Francisco. Just the town is just not my thing. There's too many people. It's too chaotic. And I go park, go into this building, and they have like this conference room, and I'm the only one in there. So then I get to meet Lee, and he's like, do you want to hear the pitch? And I was like, sure, I'll hear the pitch. Like, let me see what you got. We do that, and then I get to drive. And it's on a PS4 dev kit. It wouldn't let me record any of my footage. And I'm like, okay. So then they had to mess with that. And then it was with whatever the G29 or 920 for PS4, whichever one that is. And I'm using those pedals, and it's on a TV tray kind of thing. And we had to push it up against a counter. The TV is like up here, right? And I'm like, okay. And I'm trying to, Alex says G29, thank you. I'm trying to get used to it. And he's trying to tell me like how to drive. And I'm like, okay, yes, thank you. That's all right. Will do. Like, I'm trying not to be rude. Like, will do. Yes, thank you. Okay, I got it. And like they had some like graphical glitches and stuff going on. I was like, okay. And he's trying to tell me where to go and what tracks I could run and what car. And I just wasn't getting on with it really well because it felt so foreign. Like those gears, and it would clunk. It would, when I would go through the corners or would get up on the curbs,
Right.
it would do this clunk, 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 clunk. And then there's like no feeling in the brake pedal at all.
No.
So I'm like trying to get used to it, and I don't want to be rude and like start ripping off my shoes so I can, push on the brake pedal with my socks. And so I learned from that experience because we had to mess with it so much. I literally got 20 minutes worth of driving.
Right.
Because then they're like, oh, somebody's got this room next. We got to leave. I'm like, I just started. They're like, nope, we got to go. I'm like, oh, okay. So I kind of learned from then that I probably won't do that again. And then I got to do one more for a game that actually never came out, so I can't say which game that is, because it was not good. And the again, they promised me 2 hours, and I got half an hour because they were having so many problems, and it's like, forget it.
Right.
Now, from now on, if you want me to preview a game, you send it to me.
Yep.
And I will play it in my environment, and you can give me all the stipulations, which footage I can and can't use, but I can't give a good opinion about anything in 20 minutes, in a half an hour.
Right.
Like that. It's so you're and it's not your stuff. If it's your stuff, you might have a little bit of an opinion.
Yeah.
But without your stuff, it's like really difficult to try and come to grips with what it's trying to tell you. Oh.
When Dirt 3 came out, Codemasters threw a big press party at some hip club in San Francisco. They seem to favor that town.
Yeah. They do.
And they work with Studio 47 a lot. A PR company that specializes in the gaming industry. And anyway, some of these parties for me have been worth going to, but not for the game. Because it's like, whatever, I'm not going to be able to play it at your party in any kind of way to formulate an opinion. But, you know, this was like an open bar, free hors d'oeuvres, free t-shirts, meet the devs, meet the PR people. I ended up walking out of there with a Dirt 3 RC car.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because we were like the VIP list of that party at the time. So, like, that was certainly worth going to, but it had no information for the show. I remember when Need for Speed did Hot Pursuit, was it? What was the last Need for Speed title? Big one. They did a party at like one of the movie theaters, one of the cool old Victorian movie theaters, or Deco, not Victorian, Deco theaters in LA, sure. And had a huge party. And we went, same thing, and it was like different press got different colored bands for what it got you at the open bar. You know, but we had like the equivalent to the gold band because we were like on their super VIP list. And it was like, the party was a blast. It had zero. Now, we did do a show from there, but it had zero sim racing value whatsoever. I remember going to a Forza party. A couple of Forza parties have been over the top fun with, like, they hire big name entertainers.
So do you think when they're doing that, I mean, I think this is a common thought or even a complaint from the gaming community, is that they're trying to buy your good.
Oh, totally. 100%.
Like that? Yeah. Okay. I mean, you know, I've been offered a few of those and I don't go.
Right.
I turn them, you know, and it's not something that I talk about, but I don't go to those things because if I go to one of those things now, because I feel like there is such a big spotlight, the more years have gone on for YouTube and stuff like that, the appearance is that if I say anything positive about the game, it's because I was bribed and or bought.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know what it was like years ago because I wasn't in the industry like that years ago.
Well, and all that's gone away to an extent, or really downsized, you know, that mentality. But again, that was before they had their own media machines. So now instead of throwing $1 million parties, they have $1 million media machine in-house that can create enough in-house content to not need to do that. But they're fun. I don't know if I ever felt that it obligated me to do anything. Like, that was their choice to throw a party. That was their choice to invite me. But I'm still a journalist.
Maybe that was their intent, though, is they would hope.
Right.
that
Well,
by doing that for you, it would sway your opinion.
I think it's a good way of playing into the fanboy journalists that you already have.
Okay.
Like, where they're just going to like be so pumped up for the game. And in all these cases, I was really excited about the game to come, by the way, because, I'm a huge fan of the Forza franchise. I think it's one of the most important franchises to what we do, sim racing. Dirt 3 was a game that I was immensely excited about because I've just loved that franchise as well. Need for Speed, I'll admit, I could care less about Need for Speed coming out. Like, I really didn't care. and yet it was one of the funnest parties ever, most fun parties ever. And so it got a show where I was saying Need for Speed and having a giant smile on my face while saying it, but it didn't change the game whatsoever.
Sure.
But it did get them the attention that they paid for, I think. So, now, everything we've talked about there is on the software side of things. On the hardware side of things, I've found that whether it's in person, I've gone on site to a handful of different companies, or even in conversation at trade shows, or even in email conversations, that hardware companies are a lot more forthcoming with their secrets and trusting us to keep those secrets, but they want us to know they have stuff to, it's like, hey, keep an eye on us. Check out this new simulator we're working on, or hey, check out this new wheel we have in development, but we can't talk about yet. And I found the hardware companies definitely work by a slightly different rule set. But the software companies, it's always been a big song and dance, has been part of it, even look at E3. E3 is just a big fancy song and dance for the, now it's for the public, but it's just trying to buy favor by free trinkets and
was geared towards initially for buyers, not for the consumer. It was for, how many copies can I get you to buy of the original Forza Motorsport, for instance. Back then it was, so that's what it was geared towards. So you were trying to sell it to not a consumer, you were trying to sell it statistically, like, hey, we moved this many units last year. This is how exciting and how big this game is going to be this year. Get in now because you guys will be selling blank amount of units.
Yep. It was a true trade show back in the day, where it was only industry people, buyers, sellers, and PR. That was the only people in the building, and I think, from the journalistic side, and I've said this on the show, it's taken E3, and this coincides, I think, with those big parties, too, by the way. Those big parties happened back when, and I'm not sure that E3 is the only trade show that's been affected in this way, either. But, they've become internal media, that's the company, when a company used to do the PR, the trade show, I think it was a certain team that handled it in order to facilitate who was going to be there. Because they've changed who's going to be there, it's a different team that is now facilitating that group. So the one thing I've always said is, I could count on running into Dan Granawalt and Alan Hartman. Those are the top two guys at Turn 10 for Forza. Right. And I know for a fact, I didn't even have to have an appointment. Just walk into the booth, either one of them sees me, they're going to be all, Shaun, I can be like, Dan. That's how it's been, because I've gone there for 13 years. And now, those guys are nowhere to be found. You are not going to find them except for when Microsoft does their big speech, their big presentation. That's when Dan Granawalt will come out on stage and do his Forza spiel. But he's not going to be down on the floor waiting for the likes of you, me, or any other YouTube content creator who's savvy on the sim racing world, and to talk about the passion. And that's a big loss. So when we get back to these parties, one part of it that is cool is when the president or whoever's in charge of development gets on stage to do their keynote speech for the Forza party. It's not just all party. At some
Right.
point, it silences. They go up on stage.
They give you like their pitch.
Yeah, and when you hear, and for me, this goes a long way, because even if I don't agree with them 100%, even if the game doesn't give me everything I was looking for, when I hear them passionately talk about their baby, it makes me feel that they do care, even if the end result wasn't as good as I thought. When there's this complete divide and they're just over here and we're just over there, I have no sympathy whatsoever. I have no understanding for where they're coming from, because it's not given, it's not presented to me. You know, and I think that is very important, because to an extent it gives us hope, and it even does give us just a little bit of room to just cut them a little slack. And it's like, well, I know they couldn't, but maybe because the Xbox they couldn't, you know, but I heard Dan talk about it and he's passionate about its real representation of racing, you know. So yeah, I think it does serve a positive purpose, even though, as you brought up, yes, too much flash, too much kissing of ass, and is it just going the other way in a blatant, open, blatant way, you know?
Right.
But make no mistake, this is what sports, entertainment, not just sport, entertainment is exactly where, especially here in America, because in the UK, I know they play by slightly different rules when it comes to advertising and sponsorship and things like that. But, you know, here in the States, entertainment is the first point of battle, if you want to call it, or marketing opportunity, period. You know, and it's like, we have learned, whether you're selling rockets or video games or baseball caps, throwing big parties, having a big presentation,
right,
is the way to do it. And you know, sure, it's a form of lobbying to an extent. You know, it's
yeah, I can understand
earning and carrying favor to, but you know, anyway, yeah. Anyway, it's interesting topic, and I think it changes every year.
Right. Okay.
Oh.
Well, that's all I had.
That's all you had?
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, I got something. If you've been sim racing a long time, and when I say sim racing in the context of this conversation, is that B Blocker? Is that Barry Blocker? Barry Blocker, tell me that is not a great racing name. Barry Blocker. Old buddy of mine, I used to race with Barry all the time. Happy birthday to you, buddy. If you've been in sim racing a long time, I think one of the things and again, I remind you, PC sim racing. I think one of the things that we've taken for granted for a very long time is how difficult entry into our hobby is. And so when we talk about growth, when we talk about, you know, and growth for sim racing eventually means better sims in my mind. You know, give these companies more money, they can develop more and get us more. Sell more wheels, they can develop more and give us more. So we take for granted how hard it is to get involved. You know, like, yes, I can buy a G29, I can plug it in. Chances are the drivers will load. Chances are the wheel will work. Load my favorite sim. Not quite the same odds that it will just automatically go on my computer beautifully. Not the same odds that the settings are just going to automatically work. And in some cases, and I hate to say it, in a lot of cases, it might not work at all out of the box. Just installing it, not knowing what you're doing. And the reason I'm bringing this up today, because I think I'm guilty of taking for granted how hard entry into sim racing is. And some sims and some products are better than others, but across the board, I think we really fail. Not even like a B or a C grade, but I mean, I think we fail at the entry point to PC sim racing and getting new people. Because what brings this up is, so this week I've had computer failures left and right. Operating system failures, individual program failures, hard drive failures, And so it has me to the point where I formatted everything. I formatted the wrong drive, had to recover a drive, which that's extra on me, not anybody to point a finger at but me. And then drivers that won't install. So just getting my So when we talk about PC sim racing, yes, I can order a Dell right now and maybe spend enough money to buy a true gaming machine that will work, right? But at some point, even that computer is going to do a Windows update or a driver update, and everything's going to stop working. And so now I need to be a computer genius in order to solve what are basic problems on what should be a relatively simple hobby. And again, at the beginning, I'm talking PC. In the world of the consoles, it might not be as glamorous as this PC sim racing version we do, but it has a much better job of just being able to turn it on and make it work. I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to plug a G29 into a console and play Codemasters F1 2019. But to fire up F1 2019 on your PC and get the graphics to work, get your wheel to work, get the game to play. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you're not going to just turn it on and get there. And the instruction...
it's the plus and the minus of doing it on the PC.
Yeah.
Well, the plus side is you do have all these options available to you. The minus side is, especially when you're new, like you're talking about, it can be very overwhelming, or you get like a fancy piece of hardware that's not supported, or you got to troubleshoot. And then, not to mention, NASCAR Heat 4 is a great example. I spent 4 hours trying to get the wheel and figure out what was the problem. I spent 4 hours trying to do that.
Right. And that's coming from someone who knows what they're doing.
Right. And it's like, okay, is this, and you troubleshoot. Is this the problem? Is this the problem? Is this the problem? No. And you're just going back and forth. And to contrast with WRC8, I think I spent an hour and a half. It was something like that. And then I started shooting my review, because I did it while I was driving and everything was fresh. I couldn't do it with NASCAR Heat 4 because I had to drive so much trying to figure out my wheel problem that review had to take a different slant to it.
Right.
So yeah, I totally get it. When I was trying to get into sim racing, I was like, huh? And there's no, like, everybody has a little bit different way of doing it. And that's why I kind of make the statement, like, there should be, it's like when you buy it, John and I used to joke about it, when you buy a wheel, why isn't there hardware, nuts and bolts that come with the wheel so you can mount it?
Right. No, because now...
But it's those little things.
And here's the thing. For most of the world, you can't just go down to the hardware store. Because if you're like, I don't know, about this big, and you come back, it's like metric versus English, fine thread versus machine thread. It's like, who knows what it is? And
right.
My other gripe on this is that the sources don't have the information either. So, and I'm not trying to single out I'm not even going to name my motherboard company. But like, when I went to their website to get my drivers, I had to be a genius to figure out what drivers they were.
And where to even go to get them.
Yes, and half of them didn't actually even install properly or didn't have installer programs. So now I need some second level knowledge of how you install this non-installable thing. And so how many times I was going down the path of doing a Google search for this that led to another Google search for that led to a Google, and I still haven't even gotten my first question remotely answered. Just Phil. Phil, hit me up and I'll send you a SimPit sticker. Anyway, and I just, as I was going through this, since computers are not my specialty, I can build them, but I barely know what I'm doing with a computer. And I'm just finding, wow, if I was trying to get into iRacing today, it would be no different. And iRacing does not do a good job of, now that you've paid, let us bring you along the way, and I think they even try more than some others. It's no different if I were to pick up R Factor and, hey, I bought a Dell, I bought a wheel, now I'm going to fire up R Factor. And it's like,
Well,
but
and it's a common problem. We talk about degrees of rotation, and when you start, you're like, degrees of what? There's different ones. Like, I know this wheel will go to 900 degrees. You mean there's some sims have soft locks, other games don't have soft lock? What is a soft lock? It's like, and it's something that I wish that there was a way to help people with the hardware. Like, here you go, this is what all this does. And then in the sim or the game that you're playing, I mentioned it in NASCAR Heat Forward, they do a great job of, when you're in the options menu, of telling you what each thing, like, they have a really cool section to tune the AI to how you want them. They can be
right,
more stable, less stable, and it gives you exactly what it'll do. Perfect. When you get to the car setup, doesn't give you a lick of explaining what car setup is. You click on, the rebound for the left front, and there's nothing that tells you, I know what that does. But if a person is getting into it for the first time and they want to start messing to learn how to set up a car, there's nothing there that tells you, hey, this is
right,
what this is going to do. It's going to actually put, if it's lighter, it's going to put more weight on the right rear quicker, all these kinds of things.
right.
And it's like, we often miss there, it's often missed. And if they do explain, they explain it in the way they think sounds right, and not the way that a person that really doesn't quite have a grasp
Right.
doesn't explain it to them simply enough that they can go, oh, okay, I know what you mean. It's like, wait, are you looking at I remember looking at a set of courses descriptions for some of their stuff, going, I think I know what you mean. I don't know what you mean.
Right.
What? And then you kind of have to learn on your own, like, okay, I understand what they're saying now, but you have to play with it for a minute to figure out, okay, I get it. It's those kinds of things. So it is tough for a person trying to get into it. We have a high barrier for entry, and that's why we are the sim part of racing games. That's why it's so small.
Right. John Hill says, iRacing dumps incredibly complicated cars on us, like the Porsche Le Mans prototype, and doesn't tell us how it works. And you're right. And here's the other thing, and this is, I know what I'm going to say. In the future, here's my vision. In the future, when you stepped up into that car, the game should have taken you into this VR world saying, congratulations, driver, you've been promoted to the Porsche Le Mans prototype level. Let's take a tour of the car and some of its new features, and it's like, and make no mistake, in my opinion, in 10 years, that's where we will be, and again, that movie Ready Player One, like, even though it wasn't even all that advanced in its thinking, it totally made me just reanalyze what my expectations of gaming in sim racing are. Because it should be an environment from the minute you turn it on, not just this bring up, when you think of the UI structure in most of the games we play, this is like a really dated way of navigating your game. And it's no different than, quite honestly, go back in time to games of the 70s and 80s, I dare say. And it's like, cool, menu, left, right, left, right. It's just some graphical changes, but basically it's the same thing. And it's like, when are we going to get to that world where you walk into the sim? And I'm not just talking VR, because you can do this on a screen as well. But, I want to be in a shell, the racing shell, from the minute I launch the game. And I want it to have that kind of interaction where I can learn about the features of the car and be shown how they actually work. And there's no reason why I can't be gaining a huge real-life education simultaneous to my game. When I talk about career modes in games, these are the first stepping stones in that direction for me, and that's what I want to see more of. And again, it doesn't have to be VR. But I need more than just talk to your crew chief or talk to the media of a Codemasters, but I need the full interaction.
Well, and it can be an option. you can sit there, like you guys are discussing the LMP1 cars and iRacing. Why can't you click on a button that says need more info? Click here, and
Right.
while you're driving, you could have somebody take you through a tutorial of how to drive the car.
Right.
As you're driving, pause and then say in order to blank, and you're going to have to do blank, and this is how this car works.
Right.
That's a much easier way, and for the people that already know, then you don't need that. It's an option. You don't have to do it. And I'm all about options. So if
Right.
you're familiar, don't do it. So I don't know why that's now, to WRC8's credit, there was a demo like intro, but they said you can skip this. And I was like, thank God, thank you, because I don't want to mess with this yet. I want to go in and set everything up first before I start driving.
Right.
But they gave you that option for somebody
Right.
that might have been playing on a gamepad. They're like, no, why do I care about going and setting things up? I'm playing on a gamepad. Let me go.
Right.
Kind of thing. Let's get to the tutorial, because whatever. So options are great. Having it so where the new person feels more comfortable and getting into it is always a plus. There's never a downside unless you're going to force me to do it. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
So, and then, so getting back to our hobby and the entry point and the difficulties, and it's like, okay, so then is it on us? Okay, common sense would say, all right, well, maybe I need to do more beginners tutorials on how to get into iRacing, how to get into Assetto Corsa. And it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, but then do I have to do a Gfinity version and then an NVIDIA version and then, a Thrustmaster version, a Fnatic, a Logitech version, my OSW version, because all the parameters, and maybe that makes it a little harder on the companies to provide some of that information to us. But, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just fascinated by how I have to go to third-party information to deal with things that I paid money for from a specific vendor. And I can make the same parallel to all of the hardware and software I have in sim racing. And in many cases, it's just you're in no man's land on your own. And now I'm looking through Reddit and, that's forums, and it's like I know what's going to happen if I did it in the sim racing world. It'd be exactly what I'm experiencing in how to fix this problem with Vegas. And it's like, okay, type your problem into Google. Now you're going to find 100 paralleling problems, but not exactly yours. And then lo and behold, when you finally get somebody who actually wrote the exact problem you're having, there's not one response to it. That happened to me a handful of times. Anyway, I hope that's something that sim racing across the board addresses. When I'm hearing about the UI of the latest games, I'm like, wow, we're going further. Because now they're giving us games that don't even work on some of the basics, like navigating the UI. I can't remember what it was. I was trying to do something, and it's like, man, if you didn't have a certain button on that keyboard, I can't remember what it was. Oh, I was using a mini keyboard, and I had no function buttons. And it was like, wow, I'm literally trapped. I just can't do anything, can I?
Yep.
And there's no way to map it to my wheel. And it was really, really odd and frustrating. And so anyway, I don't think that's going to help in the future because they seem to be not concerned with and forcing blatant console structure onto the PC version.
And that's again, it kind of runs back to NASCAR Heat 4. You make all these massive improvements, but you're kind of missing the fundamental basics to get somebody going. And yeah, for somebody like you, myself, probably 98% of the people in chat, we've done enough that we can figure this out. But can you imagine a new person coming in and looking at it and going, which key is that on the keyboard? Because you're giving me Xbox prompts.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I had to hunt in the replay mode to figure out how to change the camera on the keyboard.
Right.
because my wheel doesn't tell me where the X button is. So
Oh, come on. We've all been guilty of escape, F1, F2, F3, F4, all the way down the keyboard.
I started pushing buttons on my wheel, and I figure out that in replay mode, the buttons on the wheel are not mapped the same in replay.
Oh, my.
So
yeah, so there's not even a consistency.
Yeah, it's like the X button in every other part of the game is not the X button in the replay. And so then I figured out, punching the colon, semicolon button, key would change the camera in replay. But I had to go along down the line.
Right.
That's not fair to a new person
to
do.
When you're Codemasters and you're making Dirt Rally, Grid, F1, you have enough titles and representation or market share of the sim racing world.
Jerry, that's only on the PlayStation.
That they could have created the standard. So with those 4 titles in one house, Cody's could have said, okay, from now on, here's what we're going to do. The X forever will be known as the 8 button in PC world. And they could have identified the PS4 and the Xbox controllers, given them fixed number locations or letters on the keyboard, and said, look, we're going to do it for all 4 of our games, and it's only a matter of time before somebody else is going to follow, because it's going to start becoming common. And we could put an end to all of that in a very, very simple way if they just started adopting consistency. But when you have inconsistency within the game, again, I dare say we're going further in the opposite direction, which doesn't help. I mean, I don't know how long you get when somebody buys a bunch of stuff before it needs to work, before they're going to sell that bunch of stuff and not try again. Like
Statistically, it's twice.
And
if you look at it, so what happened, like we can talk game industry for a second here. What usually happens is the first iteration comes out of a game and a lot of people really love it. So they buy the second one based off of the first one, right? They buy the second one, it's not great. The dev comes back and says, we hear you, we're going to change. And they get to the third iteration, and it's not great either. Those people are never buying the 4th iteration of the game.
End of the line.
In two iterations of a bad product, you lose the consumer. And now you have to do something that actively shows you've redeemed yourself.
Right.
And I do say that I think most gamers are forgiving. Like, if somebody comes out, they won't buy it, but if somebody they know says, I did get it, dude, it is awesome, then they will buy it. But you still will not have the same reception level as you did for game number 2, because game number 1 was good. So game number 2 sales are better, but it's garbage.
Right.
That's just how it goes. You don't really have that long to keep making the same missteps unless you're pigeonholed into, some narrow market like sim racing, and then we just take whatever we get.
Right. Yep. Well, and I mean, I'm guilty of that. I mean, and I don't mind slamming this one, but I'm using Vegas for editing, and that's where all my troubles began. And I've had trouble with various different versions of Vegas over the years, enough to where I should have an opinion. I'm just not going to use their software. And yet, every time I bring up Vegas, everybody is like, oh my God, Vegas is a piece of junk. And then I wonder to myself, how can they still be going then? How can they still be in business when I've tried 3 or 4 versions? They were all junk. Everyone I've ever talked to calls it junk, and yet they keep making the title and selling enough to continue on somehow. I don't know. Actually, it's a different company who owns them now. It used to be Sony.
Now it's like Magic's.
Yeah, so someone was like, no, it's just Sony doesn't know what they're doing. We'll do it. We'll buy it from them. Sony, meanwhile, was like,
this was like 2 years ago or so, 2-3 years ago.
And I'm only assuming Sony was like, we have this product and everyone hates us for it, so let's dump it. I don't know. I'm just saying. All right. Anything else on your mind, Billy Strange?
I think we're good. I think we've...
Yeah? You got any big plans this weekend?
No, after all this week, I can't think of anything that I'm doing.
All right.
Besides normal
stuff.
Normal day-to-day stuff.
Nothing big.
No.
All right. Few things to let people know about. Tonight, we'll be racing the trucks for the last time. This is the last event in the dirt trucks. The last for a while, not the last ever. We're gonna run the Pro 4 trucks at Wild West Motorsport Park. That's the one with the big hill, the big jump, the long track. And we're going to do that at 5:30 practice, 6 o'clock qualifying and race. If I can, I'll stream it. If I can't, I won't. That I think I can handle. And then Sunday at 10 a.m. is the Simpit Patron race number 2 for the month. We will do our t-shirt giveaway on that one. And that will be at 10 o'clock practice. 11 o'clock will be qualifying and race in the Skip Barber at an unannounced free road circuit in iRacing, but it won't be Laguna. So that does only narrow it down to a few options. But that's what's going on. Next week, we will not have a Beyond the Sim. I'll be out of town. I'll be gone.
I might be out of town the following weekend. I don't know yet. Whoops.
So we will have, you'll have to tune into Pit Stops to find out what's happening in 2 weeks. I will be off the air for an entire week starting Wednesday, so it's going to be a little quiet around here. I do have some content that might come out during that period of time, stuff that I'm editing, and will hopefully be able to release in my absence. Beyond that, get out there, do some sim racing, everybody.
Try not to have PC problems. I think that's the theme of today's show.
That's all I'm doing. It's made me a little disgruntled about like my rolling rig that I'm so proud of. I've now decided it's way too big and way too hard to move, so it's got to go.
Oh no.
So I'm looking at my next option there, but I've also changed how I'm filming a few things. So it's like now I need to rethink everything. PC problems. Anyway, I'm spending the next 5 days basically trying to get everything sorted. Go on vacation, and then come back to just a little normal for a little while, I'm hoping. Just a little normal.
Slightly.
So, anyway, all right, you guys, that's going to do it for today's show. Billy, thank you for joining me. Good conversation.
Yes, thank you.
And that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to check out Billy Strange Racing on YouTube. And be sure to check out Beyond the Sim on SoundCloud. I just got an iPhone. I'm running both. I'm doing a little comparison.
SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. And it'll probably actually RSS. What is it? RSS feeds to others as well.
Yes. So pretty much any podcast place will probably get it at that point. So anyway, get out there, do some sim racing, have yourselves a great weekend. We will be back maybe in 2 weeks, maybe in 3 weeks. We'll let you know on the pit stops coming up. That's going to do it for this one. Get out there, do some sim racing. This is Beyond the Sim. I'm Shaun Cole. That's Billy Strange, and we will see you on the track.
See ya.